This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Episode 247. I've been doing this now for what seems like 6 years or 5 years. Absolutely insane. But this is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Dave. Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And thinking about it, too, I think it's our 5-year anniversary coming up because it was around January when our good old buddy David Blatt was fired. Ty Lue was put in as the interim head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that was what our first topic was about, or our first podcast was about. So, super excited to be with you guys again. And like I said before, for the people that weren't here, but now on the actual podcast, we'll be talking about Robert Covington being a trade asset. Then we'll be jumping into Wet Boys. Ricky had a bad one, knew it, and then changed it. Then we'll be talking about Pascal Siakam returning to the Raptors and how much it legitimizes that team as a threat in the East. And then finally, we'll be welcoming him on our patron, Jake, to do an all-decade team draft from 2010 to 2019. That I am very excited for because I'm the only one, because Jake just confirmed it in the Twitch chat on twitch.tv/MostValuablePodcast that he also did not prepare. So I'm going to be the only one that prepared here, and I'm going to win. We'll also have a straw poll for that.
Here's what we got to do. We've got to, in the next 2 weeks, this next week coming up, we got to find some way to have a dumb special edition of the podcast.
That is literally every podcast.
The reason why is the January 24th would be our week of our anniversary. 249.
It's just not special. We need a 250.
If we have two podcasts next week for the fast break,
all right,
we could have our
250th episode
be the anniversary.
And what anniversary would that be?
Is that our 5 year?
2016, so 4 years.
4 years?
Four
Okay.
full years.
So I've been doing it for a little bit over 4.
Yeah.
Dave and I have been doing it for a lot longer.
Well, you did one. Yeah, you guys been doing podcasts longer, but the actual fast break, you guys did one episode and then Dave quit.
We peaked.
So
early.
But we were the OG onside kick.
Anyways, again, those are our topics. Robert Covington, Wet Boys, Toronto Raptors, and then an all-decade draft with Jake. I mentioned Jake is joining us, and Jake is a patron at patreon.com/MostValuablePodcast. So if you want to help support us out, check us out, patreon.com/MostValuablePodcast. For all the 6 people that are currently watching us on twitch.tv/MostValuablePodcast, we appreciate it. We really do. So, again, if you're watching this later, come check us out when we are live on Saturdays at noon at twitch.tv/MostValuablePodcast. But, boys, let's jump into it. I talked about this last week, that I really think this is going to be a very weak trade deadline. I know Andre Drummond's name floating around. I know that Aaron Gordon's name is flying around. I know that Kevin Love's name is flying around. I know that there are some big names that could possibly be traded, but I truly do not think that this is going to be an active deadline because of salary caps and the numbers that are floating around, the K-Loves and the Andre Drummonds.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem that these contenders have enough salary cap to move to actually acquire this, and that's why Andre Drummond, probably the most coveted trade piece that is out there, is going to a team that's not even in the playoffs in the Atlanta Hawks. And that's the team that is at least the favorite for right now. And this kind of was backed up by the Athletic's Sam Amick, where he talked about the NBA trade big board. So the top 16 players that are could be traded this season. Number 1 was Andre Drummond. We already talked about him. Number 2 was Aaron Gordon. We already talked about him, and it was a couple weeks back.
A little bit back, yeah.
And then third is Robert Covington. So that kind of shows you the strength of this trade deadline group, is that Rocco, although he be a great 3-and-D player, isn't really a guy that is a third option on an NBA championship team. He is a 4th or a 5th option on a team, but he is still a guy that could really move the needle for teams that are in that championship hunt. So let's talk about Rocco. He's got a very nice deal that can be traded by the T-Wolves. T-Wolves have been absolutely horrible as of late. Back in 2018, he signed a 4-year, $46.8 million contract. This year, he's making 11.3. Next year, he's making 12.1. And the final year in 22, he is making $12.9 million. So he is a guy that absolutely has a tradable contract, which I think is going to drive up his trade value because Aaron Gordon does have a tradable contract, but I don't really like his playing style, and I don't really know if he has a distinguished value. Right. With Andre Drummond, he's making $28 million, so he's going to be tough to trade. With Robert Covington, you know that he is a great asset. Dave, if a team's trading for Robert Covington, and we're not going to talk about value just of yet because I know Ricky has 19 trades that he's already worked out.
Counting on it.
What is a team going to get that they trade when they trade for Robert Covington? What are they getting in Robert Covington? We say 3-and-D, but what type of 3-and-D is that?
So Bobby C, which is what I think is the worst nickname I've ever heard him referred to as.
Who calls him Bobby C?
It was
me from now on.
No, it's Rocco. He has a great nickname.
I heard
it's Rocco.
I think I heard it on a live broadcast. It was one of the commentators like, that just hurts me internally.
Bobby C, baby.
Bobby C. Anyway,
sounds like a bad club singer.
I had to drop that
Ladies
out
and gentlemen, welcome to the smoking room in the Las Vegas, Hilton. Bobby C. And he's singing like Wayne Newton songs.
God. Sorry, I had to float that out there because that was one of the worst things I heard in like the last month. No, Robert Covington has been, over his career, just a great 3-and-D defender. One-on-one isn't exactly where he excels. He's a great help defender. He's a good team defender. Active hands. He knows how to work well in space, close up gaps when guys are trying to curl off screens. He's a smart player. He knows how to play in a system, and he knows his role offensively is not to be the guy who's taking all the shots. He's not, somebody who's demanding the ball often. He knows he's a catch and shoot kind of player. He's not one to put it on the floor. When he does that, once he starts dribbling more, he gets a little more turnover prone. His handles aren't quite as tight as you'd like for a wing out there. But as far as this generation, now is the perfect time for Robert Covington, and you can see why he's so highly valued in that 3-and-D role. Even though in this year he is on a bit of a downturn career-wise, his shooting percentage are off. But as of very recently, during the time Cat's been out of the Timberwolves lineup due to injury, Covington's been putting up like 13 and 6 on fairly pedestrian shooting. I mean, 43, 33, 67. Doesn't go to the line often, so it's not horrid. But in the last 4 games, he's had 20 points, 15, 17, 15. He's taken more of a leading role in that Timberwolves offense, and they've won 3 out of the 4. So this really embraces the fact that he's starting to get in gear. I know he was out for a little bit, but like he's starting to hit his stride. So I think with a little bit more of this, his value will be right back to where it was, at the end of last year. The only problem I see with his contract is the fact that teams who are looking to have that cap opening for the 21 season, where you're going to have everybody free, it's the big Giannis here. Everybody wants to know,
So not this offseason, next offseason.
But the following offseason. So anybody who wants to have that open, that's the question. He is on a great deal. 10 million, 11 million, 12 million range. That's absolutely perfect for him, and the value he brings to your team is great. But if you're on a championship contending team, the question is, or if you're on a team that wants to contend for a superstar like Giannis, if he does hit free agency, it does beg to question. I think he could be movable again, though. Like for me, he kind of trumps Andre Iguodala in the free agency market, or in the trade market, I should say, because Iggy, great defender, he's got the pedigree, but Rocco, I'm much more confident in Rocco, even though he did struggle in the playoffs. But right now, we haven't seen Iguodala play this year.
Yeah.
So,
and Rocco's only 29 years old. And
the contract, too.
And you look at what he did. The contract is better.
Yeah.
I think he's $6 million cheaper, which is massive to teams like the Lakers and the Clippers if they do want to get a 3-and-D player. Another thing, too, last year he was a guy that I think he was the only player in the top 20 of both blocks and steals. He is a guy that is just tenacious on the defensive end. You bring up the shooting, which is fair. He's at 34.8 on the season.
Right.
But overall, he's always been a hot and cold guy. He'll be at,
fire.
He started off
last year.
Well, he started off his career as like a 37% shooter from 3. Then he fell off to 35. Then he fell off to 33. Then he shot back up to 36, 37, and then he started off his 13 games in Philadelphia as like literally the best shooter in the league.
Yeah.
He started off at like 50%, then went down to 39%, but still maintained that in his years, his 22 games in Minnesota at 37, and now he's back down to 34. I do think he's a league average 3-point shooter. He's around 35, 36%, and I think he is hurt by coming back from his injury, and also them not having a dynamic playmaker. So I think he does need to go to a team that needs some wing help, Ricky, but also has a team that has a better playmaker than a Jeff Teague. Maybe not a dynamic one because there's not many there's not many out there. But which teams kind of fit that role that need a wing that also have a playmaker that could help him, really thrive in an offense as an off-ball shooter?
To me, I'm not even looking at I know, like you say, need a playmaker next to him. I see him more as the trade piece of like, I'm looking mainly at that defense. Okay, let's bring him in. He can shoot the three, although he's not a sharp shooter from the outside.
Right now,
the defense is what I bring. And if I'm a playoff team that needs a guy if we're in a playoff series, if I look at a team like Boston, hey, we're going to have to go up against some great players, Giannis being one of them, Chris Mid being another one. What if in a playoff series we need someone to lock down in a key situation, someone on the other team? The Lakers could be in that situation. They go up against the Clippers. You got Kawhi and Paul George. That Rocco would be great in guarding one of those to try to limit their outcome and how they're going to affect the outcome of the series. Right now, the 4 teams that I'm looking at are the 76ers, the Houston Rockets, the Lakers, and the Celtics. Those are the ones that I think are going to try to have a bidding war to add Rocco.
I want to jump on just the Celtics. In my opinion, no. I just want to flat out say I don't think Jason Tatum's playing some of the best wing defense in the NBA right now, and I don't think you need to go out and get another guy who crowds up that position between Hayward, Tatum, and Brown. I would feel comfortable knowing those are my 3 wings, and you have someone versatile as Marcus Smart who can guard anybody like 1 through 4. So that one I don't know that I necessarily agree with, but I'm very curious because the other teams, I think you're spot on.
And I think, too, we could probably knock out the Celtics because what would they trade for them? Did you have a trade for the Celtics?
I was working one out, but I've got from Forbes.com. They have an article gauging the
where I get all my
Memphis pick. Well, I think it's interesting. This is from Sean.
I know, I'm just being a dick.
Sean Devaney, I think is pronounced his last name. But he put in here, and the exact quote reads, Boston would have to give up Theis and Cantor to get him, hollowing out their middle. The Celtics certainly would not include the Memphis pick in the deal for Covington.
Absolutely not.
They own Milwaukee's first rounder in 2020, which would be more likely the candidate for such a trade.
I'll stop it there just because literally you're not hollowing out your middle, you're killing your middle.
Yeah, you have no center.
There's no big outside of Robert Williams.
Taco Fall
and Robert
unless they
Williams
also try to make a trade if they're trying to add both Rocco and Bertans.
They're extremely handicapped, though, because of the lack of pieces that they're able to move.
Yeah.
Literally, it's do you want to trade Gordon Hayward for an Andre Drummond and get a solidified big, and because he's worth $32 million, so you can go get one of the bigger trade pieces and get rid, thin out your wing depth a little bit if you do want to get Gordon Hayward, or you need to trade those garbage pieces. But if you're going to trade one of those garbage pieces, you're going to need to go out and get a big man because most of the guys on those smaller deals are big men. So I think that one's iffy. So I'd cross them out. So you got Houston. You have
Houston,
the Sixers,
Lakers, and Celtics. The Celtics.
We'll kill the Celtics.
Well, I just want to mention the trade that I had for them is different than that. Theis, Langford, Williams, and the first for Covington. But it's contracts. Because the thing that the Timberwolves want is they want to add value for Covington, but they want a key piece that can help their team. They're not just trading him for cap dump. They're not trading him for expiring contracts. They want to trade him for someone that can help them get better, which will be difficult.
I don't know if Langford will help them get better, but he is an interesting piece. You're pretty much getting
him and Culver can grow together.
You're pretty much getting 2 first-round picks in that because Langford is so young, but he is raw, so he's going to need time to develop. I think we can cross out the Celtics. So Lakers, Rockets, and Sixers. Dave, do you want to add on any other team besides those, or do we want to just go into those?
Give me a trade to work out, Dave.
No, do we just want to go into those 3?
I think Soapy in the comments section from Twitch brings up a great one in the Trailblazers. They're a team who lost all of their wing depth to injuries. They lost their bigs to injuries. They've lost everything to injuries. They've been limping along with a combo of like Nasir Little, Carmelo Anthony, and Mario Hezonja.
They need Melo to hit game-winning shots now.
So... Hey, I'm as shocked as you are that he hit that shot. So I think that one's an interesting one. Outside of that, I feel pretty good about the teams we've got.
Okay, so we'll throw in that the Trailblazers. So we got 3 teams from the West and 1 team from the East. And obviously, I think we'd be stupid if we didn't talk about pretty much not the dark horse, but the elephant in the room, in the fact that the team that I think is most intriguing for Robert Covington to go to is his old team in the 76ers. I don't know. I love when this happens. I love when guys are traded from one team and it's not even like 2 years have passed by and they're like, we should probably add this guy to the team. It's like, why did you trade him away?
We could use a guy kind of like that, right?
Obviously, they went out and got Jimmy Butler, so it wasn't a stupid trade. Didn't end up working out for them in the end because they didn't win a championship. They didn't go to the Eastern Conference Finals, but they were very close to beating the Toronto Raptors. I don't think many Sixers fans regret trading Rocco and Dario and other pieces for Jimmy Butler. But Robert Covington on the Sixers, I think, makes too much sense. I think this is the team that could absolutely make this deal. They absolutely need him. He's going to bring three-point shooting to this team, and you really don't need to worry about any, him aligning with this team. You don't have to worry about him getting involved with this team because he's already worked under Brett Brown. He was coached by him for mainly his entire career before he went to Minnesota. He's already played with Ben. He's already played with Joe. I think that he would fit in nicely on this team, and at least for the 13 games that we saw him last year with this team, he had probably his best season. I mean, he was having a great 13 games, and yes, it was a very small sample size, but I think he really fits in well with that offense. I think the Sixers, if they're going to make any trade, I think they would probably regret the Al Horford signing, but I think they do need to add some defense, and they do need to add some three-point shooting, and it's pretty much the same old story as we've been saying with the Sixers, like we've been saying with the Celtics needing rebounding. They need that guy on the outside edge, mainly just because they lack so desperately to find scoring at times. They just need someone to stretch out the floor, to help out Joe, to help out Ben driving to the bucket.
Agreed.
Rocco to the Sixers. I love it. What do you think?
I would be in on it. I'm with you as far as what it brings to the team. It does help legitimize them again. And the only problem in my mind that I go back to is like value-wise for that deal, like what would it cost the Sixers because they're in a position where...
Yeah, and that's the thing where I feel like out of the trades that I'm working, they're probably, out of the four I have, they're probably 3 or 4. On the list of like 1 being the best, 4 being the worst.
If you say that name out loud, Jake's going to kill you.
No, I know. And it's not of like, it's not a question of would the T-Wolves want what the Sixers would offer.
Yeah.
It's can the Sixers, are they going to be willing to give up what they may have to give up? Because the 2 names that I'm seeing thrown out there are Mike Scott and Thibault. But you may have to make contracts work. Add in a guy, you need 2.9 then to make contracts work.
Right.
The only other guy you've got to make that work is Zaire Smith. And if you're the Sixers, do you want to give up both Zaire, Thibault in order to get Covington?
No, you knock out Thibault and replace him with Zaire. That trade works. If you do Mike Scott and Zaire Smith, that balances out the salary cap.
Nice.
Double check.
And they also have a ton of draft picks.
They do.
So I think you could honestly bump them up higher because
I
they
think Mike Scott, Zaire, and a first.
Well, yeah, they have Oklahoma City's first this year.
So you're saying
and they
Scott
also have a ton of second rounders.
and draft picks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works out salary cap wise because trading Thibault I think would be stupid.
Agreed.
With the way that he's been able to play. And yes, those guys are very similar, but also Rocco is more of a guy that has that connectability or the past with Ben and Joel and this offense and Brett Brown, and he is just further on into his career where Thibault still makes those rookie mistakes. He isn't able to hit those big shots. He doesn't really have the composure yet of an NBA player. Rocco has that, and I think Thibault off the bench is huge. Jake does bring up a point that they do need a secondary ball handler, but I still think that's you still be able to find that because you're looking for a bench point guard, and I think you can do that, especially with Jonah Bolden's contract, Trey Burke's contract. You do still have a ton of picks as well to move, so I think you could find a cheap secondary ball handler for the cheap, and I think Rocco just at least solidifies you again because, having him as a 6-man, we talk about the importance of wing defense, not only in the playoffs, but it's just going to make this team ferocious every single night. And I know Ben has been probably up and down, and Joel obviously now being out is going to affect them a little bit.
That
but
nasty finger.
I think that you really cannot have enough defense and enough wing presence in the NBA, and especially when you're going up against the Celtics, the teams that have been kicking your ass, each and every year. Although they are 3-0 this year,
3-0, just got to drop that. Yeah.
I think that when it comes to the playoff time, I do think that Hayward and Brown and Tatum might end up being too much at some point.
Yeah.
And if you go out and get Rocco, it makes that a lot easier, and that 3-0 might turn to 7 wins right there, or 4 wins if you beat 8 wins if you beat them again and you sweep the season series. It might turn into 8 wins at some point when you play them in the playoffs. So I do think that Rocco is a necessary asset for them, and I think that trading Thibault would be short-sighted. I think Zaire has shown that he is too young, and I don't know if he is going to end up being the player that he is, at least on this Sixer team. I think that he might need a change of scenery, although he is too young. I just don't think he is a good fit here because of the development that he needs. I don't think he can get the playing time here.
If the T-Wolves are smart, they start a bidding war, because some of the things, the worst trade that I'm seeing and trying to work out are the Rockets, because the thing I'm going back to is the T-Wolves wanting to add something of value that will help their team win, not just a dump. And the Rockets, it's like they're not, in my mind, not going to give up PJ Tucker. He's the guy that helps them in the playoffs.
He's the good guy.
Anyone else, like Donnell House, if I'm the T-Wolves, I go, no, not really. Austin Rivers, it's like, yeah, he's good, but I don't really, that's not what I'm looking for. Gerald Green, Ben McLemore, Cephalosha. These are guys that I'm not intrigued with if I'm the T-Wolves. And really the only deal then that I can feel for the Rockets would be Aaron Gordon and first-round picks. And it's like Eric Gordon and first-round picks. And it's like, if I'm the T-Wolves, that's the least enthusiastic to me, because they're going to be low picks because the Rockets are good.
But you can get them far enough in the future where they might not be.
Yeah, but like
that's where the Rockets' capital's at though right now. Remember, they had to give up picks to
traded everything.
Give Chris Paul away.
But the T-Wolves are banking on being successful with Wiggins and Cat, and if you do that, you're not adding talent to help win with Cat.
But you can move that around. That's the thing. It's future capital that you can trade in instantly to get a piece.
Literally last year, the most valuable trade pick that we were talking about, and now it doesn't even matter. No, it wasn't even that. The most valuable trade piece that we're talking about was the 2021 Miami pick.
Yep.
And now Miami, it doesn't even matter because Miami's actually a good basketball team. But the idea that, this team might be that bad at that year is so intriguing to teams, being on a first round unprotected. It does add a little bit of value, but I do think that they want to upgrade rather than add to the future. They probably want to trade Teague's expiring deal to get pieces that they could add to this team either this year or next year. I think the same would be with Rocco. So I think the later picks don't intrigue them because they're really focusing on keeping Cat in town. So while I do think it could be very valuable, I do think that Ricky's kind of right, because I just don't think it intrigues them that much because they're trying to help right now.
And that's why I would go with other deals. Like the Laker one that I worked out would be a future first, KCP, and Kuzma.
That's
for Rocco.
That's a haul.
Unless you change. At first, I had that first to a second, but you talking about the Sixers and what they could offer, maybe that forces the Lakers to change that second into a first.
The biggest thing with that is I think that you probably don't need the first there. KCP is a negative, I think.
He's got the player option.
I don't think he really affects this team that much. I don't love KCP. The biggest thing, though, is that he has the money that you need to make that deal go. And Kuzma really doesn't help this team. So value-wise to the Lakers, I think it's pretty low. So maybe that's why they end up adding in a first-round pick. Because, Kuzma really isn't helping that team. Rocco brings defense that Kuzma doesn't have. Yeah, but Kuzma right now is a better shooter, but I do think that Rocco can improve.
But if I'm the T-Wolves, I'm trading for what I think Kuzma could be on our team, not what he's doing on the Lakers.
No, but I'm saying the Lakers-wise, I think that it does seem high because Kuzma's younger, he's controllable, he's cheap, and KCP could be an expiring deal.
I don't know if they give... To me, Rocco's not a big enough upgrade over KCP to give up. Yeah.
What am I missing on KCP then?
He's a 2-3 defender. He shoots well. He doesn't take horrible shots often. When he starts to stroke it, he starts to feel it sometimes. He's not the guy you count on, but he is not a negative. He's a solid shooter. He's a solid defender. I get the whole he's not the brightest guy with all the off the court situations. But I think on the court, 8 times out of 10, he's a positive for your team. He'll have his Shaqtin' a Fool moments, but
right now he's shooting 43% from 3, but that is insanely astronomical compared to his previous career high. And defensively, I don't even think that KCP is in the same ballpark as Rocco. You look at what Rocco has done throughout his career. His best season, defensive rating-wise, is 103. Right now it's at 106. KCP's best is 109. So I mean,
and that's right now.
And it's right now. So I think if you add Rocco to a lineup with LeBron James, AD, his 3-point shooting percentage is going to go up. The reason why right now KCP's shooting 43% is because he's playing with those two stars. Rocco is going to get that bump, and we've seen him be around 39%. So he could be a guy that shoots around that 43% mark, and he's going to give you vastly better defense. That's why he's getting paid $11 million, and KCP's getting paid $8.
But the question is he a big enough upgrade that it's worth moving Kuzma for? Kuzma is your golden goose. That's the only piece left that you have that has a good value around the league, no matter where you at.
But the thing is that again,
I think
we go back.
a ball handler more than a.
And that's fair.
Rocco.
I don't disagree with that.
That's why I feel like they have to use Kuzma for that, because Rondo has played so poorly this year that as much as I still want to believe in playoff Rondo being around the corner, like it's just something they have to address. And I don't know what value they can get out of any other piece in this team. So if they're going to move Kuzma, I don't think the small upgrade over KCP, and it is, I will say it's an upgrade, but like, I don't think that's a dramatic enough upgrade to change their playoff prospects. I think they need that ball handler, and that they're going to have to pay Kuzma
real
to
quick.
do that.
I mean, KCP, his best defensive win shares, even then too, hasn't even eclipsed 3. Rocco's been in the 4.5s. I mean, Rocco is much more of an elite defender.
And he's more versatile too.
Yeah, I like Rocco better, especially when you're going up against those bigger wings like PG3 and Kawhi. And I agree with you that the backup guard is more important for the Lakers. But the thing, too, with the Kuzma that I find issues with, at least for him, is, I don't think he's a fit on this Laker team. And also, he doesn't have a ton of salary that is going to help them get a piece. So that's the biggest thing that hurts Kuzma's trade value, is that you really cannot move him without attaching another piece like a KCP. That's what hurts Kuzma. So I mean, really, it's you're going to need to make an upgrade to this team. I don't think that you can stand still.
Agreed.
So which backup guard could you find, or secondary ball handler could you find if you're the Lakers with the salary cap restrictions you have? That might not be possible. That's why I think you at least try to make an upgrade.
Okay.
And that's in Rocco. That's why I think the first round pick might need to be attached, because to the Lakers, KCP and Kuzma, I don't think really mean much to this team outside of being bodies that can eat up minutes, because Kuzma isn't really fitting in with LeBron and AD, and KCP, you're getting an upgrade in Rocco.
The other trade I'm seeing that if I'm the T-Wolves, I say no to, but I wanted to throw it out for discussion anyways, is Kuzma, Quinn Cook, and DeMarcus Cousins. Reasons why I'm saying no is DeMarcus Cousins, he's hurt and he's done at the end of the year. So if I'm the T-Wolves, I ain't expecting DeMarcus Cousins to want to sign and stay with Cat.
It's just filler.
Really, in that one, you're getting Quinn Cook and Kuzma, but if I'm the Lakers, I would rather trade a KCP than a Quinn Cook and try to get that. Because if you're talking ball handling, why am I going to give up Quinn Cook to get Rocco unless I'm going to use KCP in a different deal to get a ball handler?
That's the thing. Quinn Cook is... he's a chucker. And that's fine. That's what Kuzma is too.
He's not really a ball handler either.
No.
He's a point guard.
Yep.
He's a guard, maybe.
So, no, I see what you're saying there. And... yeah, it's a tough situation for them. So Lakers are in a tough position because it seems like they need 2 upgrades in order to be like at their prime.
Yeah,
and
Rockets are iffy because they don't have a ton of future.
Rockets' value is so far out in the future, it might not help keep Cat happy and move this team forward.
So final team, Portland. What can they offer? They have Anthony Simons. They have Nasir Little.
Simons, Little, and Rodney Hood. Because Rodney Hood's hurt, but you look at it and it's for the T-Wolves.
That's too much value.
That's
contracts.
So much value.
That's the thing.
I know, but that's if that's what they're if that is the deal, then I would not do the deal.
If you want, to me, it's like if I'm the T-Wolves, Simons needs to be in the deal, maybe even Nasir Little. After that,
and I'm hanging up the phone.
The only people, even if it's just one
How'd
of
you
those,
like a slightly used Mario Hazonia?
Yeah.
Even if it's just Simons, and I'll take Nasir Little out of it. To make a deal work, you need Kent Bazemore is $19 million. That would then put it over to where the T-Wolves have to give up more. And if I'm the T-Wolves, I don't even want Bazemore
because we need more point guards in Portland.
Yeah, but T's making 19.
I know I
don't see the Trailblazers giving up a Zach. Like Zach Collins is the only other guy,
and wouldn't it?
And I don't think Portland does that. So Portland to me is kind of handicapped unless you want to basically do the we're giving up Rodney Hood, even though he's hurt,
Yep.
because we need wing help, and Rodney Hood as a player option. Rocco could be here for longer, and we can get more use out of Rocco than we would Rodney Hood, although he was playing good for us before he went down with that Achilles.
The one thing I just don't...
and Rodney Hood's got a no-trade clause, so we'd have to say okay to it.
I just don't know what the rules are for trading players that are injured, because I think you'd have to pass a physical.
They can
I don't
waive the
know if
physical.
he can. Okay, he can waive.
It's a choice by the team accepting the deal.
Yeah.
If they that's why Boogie can be traded. He wouldn't pass the physical, but it's just the fact that the team waives it, just saying, "Hey, that's fine."
We understand.
It's
what
a
we're
business
getting kind
deal.
of
This
with
is
that.
not a
Yeah,
anything else.
and Hood has a player option next year for $6 million. So I mean, maybe he would accept that. I mean, if
It's his NTC that's.
I would
the bigger
say,
factor.
yeah. I mean, maybe he would just accept it, because that way he knows that he's going to get $6 million next year, because he can accept the deal. I would also say too that, at least for Portland, I don't mind giving up Rodney Hood, although he played well this year, because it's not really about the Achilles injury, although guys do not come back the same way from that injury.
Right.
I would say mainly, though, right now we are trying to push for the playoffs. We need to keep Dame happy. We need to keep CJ happy. We need to figure out where we are with this team. Obviously, the Nurkic injury has screwed us a bit, but Whiteside's played well. I think that Rocco is a massive upgrade to their team and is exactly what they need. And also, that doesn't even limit them, because they could still, they're not giving up any picks in that deal. They are giving up Nasir Little, who obviously is valuable, but they also have $19 million that they can move in a Bazemore deal and then include picks. So I think if you're giving up Rodney Hood and you're giving up Nasir Little, if that deal goes through, I would do it, because Nasir Little is a guy that is fairly young. I think you have to add $1.4 million to
Gary
that
Trent
deal.
Jr.
You could add Tolliver or Gary Trent Jr.
Well,
Yeah, one of them.
Because the
works.
one I did, I took out Nasir because you were saying you'd say no.
No, I'd say no
I would
because
take
of
up
Simons.
Simons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nasir I would trade. So you could do Rodney Hood, Nasir, and Gary Trent.
Anthony
I had-
Simons is
I had
gonna be a
Simons
fucking
in there,
stud.
and it was Hood, Simons, and Gary Trent plus a pick. Then,
Yeah.
what are the T-Wolves going to want for it? And if I'm the T-Wolves, I want Simons
The answer's
more than
no.
I want
That's
Nasir
a click.
Littles.
But Nasir Little has future potential, and I think he's already a good enough defender. That's a good starting point for the T-Wolves in the future, because you have a Kogi, and now you add Nasir Little. You have legit
and
bench
Nasrid.
defense at that point. And those guys have the
Nasrid's the
potential. Those guys have the potential to grow into really good starters.
Well, and I think too,
So-
Nasir Little's probably his ceiling would be Rocco.
I don't think I'll ever be the shooter that Rocco is, but I think he's
Yeah, but
got a
if
better
you,
slat.
if you hope if everything
Yeah.
clicks for him, you'd hope that he'd be Rocco. I mean, right? Long, lengthy guy. I mean, he's a little bit
He
shorter
might
than
have better
Rocco.
on-ball defense upside because of how physically built he is. Rocco is long. He's still strong, but Nasir Little...
He's a better athlete.
Yeah.
He's a better athlete than Rocco.
Totally.
So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate that deal. So, I mean, we have the Trailblazers giving up Rodney Hood, Nasir Little, and Gary Trent. We have the 76ers
a
giving
first.
up Mike Scott, and possible picks.
Yeah.
The Sixers giving up Mike Scott, Zaire, and a pick. And I think those two deals are probably the most intriguing, right?
I've got a fun one.
Yeah,
just
give
out
us a
there.
fine one, then we'll end this.
Pacers move McDermott and a first
I have no issue with that.
for Rocco. That way the Pacers' fucking backcourt is Brogdon, Victor Oladipo, Rocco, and then at the 4, you can do the double game if you want to do Sabonis
Sabonis and
into Turner, or you can do TJ Warren goes back to the bench where
Jesus
he roasts kids
Christ.
for 50 points.
Still dropping 18.
So you said McDermott and who are
A
they?
first.
Okay.
The cash works.
Yeah.
It's
McDermott
just
sucks.
he's a good shooter
He
still.
sucks.
No, he's still a good shooter, and that's what you keep the Timberwolves with spacing.
That is weird that the cap works.
Pacers got room.
That's the thing that I didn't realize.
So-
Yeah, they paid him way too much.
Yeah,
that's
he's
been
like a
their worst
$7 million
move.
contract. It's just whatever.
I wouldn't hate it. Yeah, and
'Cause-
Jake's loving it too because you reunite TJ and Rocco.
Oh, you could include TJ in that deal if you wanted to.
Then you're killing Jake's dream of having TJ and Rocco in there. Don't do it.
That's why.
As a somewhat Pacer fan, as if I had to pick an East team, it would be the Pacers. If I had to pick a
Right?
West team, it would be the Nuggets. I'd be here for it.
I love the idea of that Pacers team, and I just can't wait for Vic to come back. That's what I'm most excited for.
And you were down on the Pacers this year.
Yeah.
And you're fucking wrong. I mean,
see.
the Pacers are great, and they still have Goga.
I know.
And
Ricky's boy Gorga.
he hasn't gotten
Gorga Batazzi.
he hasn't gotten a ton of minutes.
He's looked okay in the short since he's get. Yeah. And you got
he
the
had those
Holiday
two-
He
brothers.
played against the Bulls.
He had those 2 great games, and the Holiday brothers were fantastic last night against the worst
Yeah.
team in the NBA, in the Chicago Bulls.
You mean the Atlanta Hawks?
No, the worst team in the Chicago.
Atlanta
The
Hawks.
worst team in the NBA is the
Atlanta
Chicago Bulls.
Hawks.
No,
Save,
They're
it for
It's
later,
actually
boys.
four teams worse than us, but
I would
not
take
saying.
all of them over the Bulls.
Save it for later.
All right.
I'd be mistaken.
That is going to do it for the Rocco segment. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Jake is apparently, or you're now dead to Jake.
Yeah.
So
I
there
like
you go.
Soapy.
Congratulations.
No one would score on that.
No,
I know.
they wouldn't, and that would make the Pacers
That's gonna be
deadly.
disgusting.
Let us know what you think. Which team most intrigues you? What trade package do you think that we possibly got right? We probably were wrong on most of them, but let us know if we got any right in your opinion. Also, let us know, like, is there a team that we didn't mention that you think Rocco would be a good fit on? Let us know in the comment section down below. Again, we're live on twitch.tv/MostValuable Podcast, so follow us on Twitter at MostValuable Podcast if you do want to see when we are going live.